What inspires us to fill blank sheets of paper? Is it sunshine or crocus flowers? How do we project the fanciful images that play in our minds? Swirling images of light and color we somehow capture in 2 dimensions. What inspires us to fill blank sheets of paper? Is it a burning desire to communicate profound truths, or the sparkle in our eyes that makes us laugh? How do we fill a blank sheet of paper? With words and ink, or colors and brush, crayon or pencil or chalk? What inspires us to fill a blank sheet of paper? Perhaps it is simply the blank sheet of paper.
In a dream, in a trance, my spirit flies to the pink horizon of the forest, where fairies say, "Come and play," and the animals say, "There's a better way," an enchanted land of love. My best friends live in the woods.
My Best Friends Live in the Woods. The Adventures of Albert by Anne Michelle Moracek.
Chapter 7. Yellow Paint. Drip, 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 drip. Albert woke up to the sound of snow melting and the birds serenading the sunrise. Spring was warming the forest, and the joy of it was flowing through all the creatures that lived there. All 23 little skunks and Albert were snuggled together on the great moss bed. Timothy had his warm, fluffy tail across Albert's back, and Jillian's paws were resting across his shoulder. Albert carefully wriggled himself free and tiptoed into the kitchen. Bluebell and Mother Skunk were already up, sitting at the table quietly talking and sipping a cup of tea. "I've made purple cornflower tea this morning," Mother said. "It will keep us well. I don't need all you with the sniffles. Weather change can bring the sniffles, you know," she said as she poured Albert a cup. Purple cornflower grew in sunny glades all through the forest. Mother often took the family to gather the blossoms and new leaves. She would lay them out to dry and save them to make tea. There would often be flowers and leaves spread on tables and on the floor and hanging in bunches upside down from the ceiling. It was often an annoyance to a young raccoon who just wanted to play. "Don't you step on my herbs," Mother would warn. But this morning he was glad to have the warm mug of fragrant tea to sip. It felt tingly on his tongue and warm going down. "What should we do today?" Albert asked, wiggling on his stool. "I'm going out to look for the first flowers of spring," Bluebell said. "Would you like to come with me?" Albert thought on this a minute. "What I really want to do is paint a picture," Albert replied. "Yes, but what will you use for paint?" Bluebell asked. He hadn't thought about that. Bluebell and Mother exchanged smiles. "Bluebell and I were talking about collecting crocus flowers when you came into the kitchen," Mother Skunk said. "What is a crocus?" Albert asked. "A lovely little flower that pokes his head up through the last of the snow. It's the first flower of spring," Mother explained. "Do you make tea with it?" he asked. Mother smiled. "No, not tea, but the pollen stems inside the little blossom cups are the most wonderful spice for cooking. It's called saffron. You would be especially useful to Bluebell in gathering them with your little hands. You're so much better at fine work." Albert smiled at the compliment. "If you gather enough, I will let you use a few for paint when you get back," Mother promised. So off they went. Bluebell carried the basket, while Albert skipped and zigged and zagged and hopped along beside her. You know, Albert, if you would just walk a straight line, you would get there in half as many steps, Bluebell said, amused. Yes, but I'm pretending to be a butterfly, he answered. Oh, well, that explains a lot, she laughed. How do you know where we're going? He asked his big sister. Because they bloom in the same place every year, she replied. But doesn't the wind blow the seed wherever it wants? He asked. Crocus flowers don't grow from seeds, she explained. They have bulbs that stay in the warm earth, kind of like an onion. Well, that was convenient, he mused. They followed the stream to the place where the large rocks made the water swirl and splash around them. Albert liked the bubbly foam it made. There were still the last bits of ice along the edges of the stream, but it was flowing fast in the middle. Then they turned right and climbed up a small hill, pushing their way through the soggy, snow-crusty leaves. How much further, sis? Albert panted. Just past the tall oak ahead. The clearing is there. Bluebell trudged on determinedly. As she stepped to the edge of the glen, Albert suddenly felt he was in a magic place. The gray, soggy snow gave way to a field of bright purple, yellow, and white blossoms. The stems were just a couple of inches tall, giving the appearance of a living spring carpet. Wow! Albert shouted. This is great! He started to run into the open glen. No, Albert, stop! Bluebell grabbed his hand. Never run into the open field until you look to see it's safe. Her warning was quite serious, and Albert sat quietly, his heart pounding. Big Sister was wise and cautious, just like Mother, Albert thought. Bluebell sat quietly listening. Listening for what, Albert had no idea. At last she was satisfied and took a step into the clearing. She looked every way, stepped a bit further, and then she motioned for Albert with a smile. All clear! Albert scampered into the flowers. Now I can really be a butterfly, he grinned. Look, Albert, let me show you what to do, Bluebell said, leaning over the flowers. As he watched, she picked just the stamens or the pollen sticks from the middle of the blossom and placed them in the cloth handkerchief that lined her basket. They're so tiny and pretty and red, Albert said. Yes, they are, Bluebell agreed. And we will need lots and lots of them, so get to work. Crocus only bloom one time a year, so this is our only chance to stock up Mother's pantry. At first it was fun picking the cute little red stems. The bottom of Sister's basket began to turn red with the little stems. As the sun rose, the early chill turned to warmth, and the crunchy snow continued to melt until it resembled a soggy marshmallow. As the sun rose higher and higher, Albert started to get tired. It was very repetitive work, and after the 100th flower, his hands ached and his toes were cold. Can we stop now? He asked Sister. Bluebell eyed the basket critically. Do you want Mother to cook our food with no spice to flavor from about August till next spring? Bluebell asked back. No, Albert replied. Then keep picking, Bluebell said. She had not even paused in her efforts. Finally, she motioned for him to sit with her in the shade, and she pulled out of her apron pocket 2 slices of Mother's brown bread. Lunch, she said, handing Albert the biggest piece. Albert smiled and broke off a chunk and handed it back to her. Thank you, dear. She accepted his offer. We will pick till the basket is filled to here, she pointed. Then we will go home, and I will make paint for you as a reward for a job well done. Albert was pleased and thought about what he would paint. The sun streamed through the tree branches. There were no leaves yet. The trees were still sleeping. I wish I could paint the sunshine, he said to Bluebell. Perhaps you can, she smiled. At long last the basket filled to the spot Bluebell had pointed, but Albert suspected the spot kept moving up. When they came into the cave, most of the other children were sitting in front of the fire warming their toes and chattering merrily. Albert joined them. His toes were very cold indeed. Bluebell took the filled basket to Mother. After a bit, she called in. Albert, are you warm yet? I have your paint ready. Oh, boy! Albert jumped up and scampered to her. Bluebell held out a small cup. When Albert looked in, all he saw were a few of the red crocus pollen stems they had picked. That's not paint, he frowned. But it will be, she teased. Watch. Sister poured a small amount of water into the cup and began to stir. Suddenly, the water turned the most beautiful yellow he had ever seen. Yellow? How can red stems make yellow? He exclaimed with excitement. It's magic, Bluebell winked. Now, maybe you can paint the sunshine. Mother Skunk had prepared a spot at the table for Albert with a lovely piece of her pressed paper. With Bluebell's cup of yellow paint and brush, Albert sat in front of the blank sheet. There's nothing as wonderful as the infinite potential of a blank piece of paper, Mother Skunk said dreamily. Albert knew just what he wanted to paint first. Right in the middle, at the top of the page, he painted a round circle of yellow with lines coming down. There's the warm spring sunshine, he announced. Lovely, Mother admired his work, but who is it warming? Who indeed, he thought. He was going to paint himself in Bluebell, but he needed black and white and brown for that, and he really didn't want to paint himself yellow. Then he had an idea. I'll paint Mother Duck and her 2 chicks, Albert told Mother. How very nice, she smiled. With great effort, Albert placed the ducks under the lovely spring sun on his picture. Albert's tummy began to grumble. I'll bet the ducks are hungry, he thought. He looked around the kitchen and saw Mother Skunk was making a large salad of early spring greens and brewing more purple cornflower tea for their supper. No purple or green paint, he mused. Then he noticed several kernels of corn on the floor near the pantry door. Wonder how they got there, he thought. No matter, that was the perfect thing for his picture, Ducks to Eat. Albert painted a yellow corn kernel in Mother Duck's winged hand. Then he painted a yellow bowl and filled it with yellow corn kernels. Now they'll have happy, full tummies, he showed Mother Skunk and Bluebell. That's a very nice painting, son, Mother said. She lifted it carefully and set it on the top shelf. I will put it here to dry as we have our supper. While they crunched their salad, the other children talked of their day playing tag and tug of war. Most days, Albert would have been jealous that he didn't get to play. But today he felt extra special. He had seen the carpet of crocus flowers and the sunshine and the magic of yellow paint. That evening, Mother hung Albert's painting on the wall next to the great moss bed. So you can look at it as you fall asleep, she had said as she kissed his forehead and tucked him in. Albert smiled and felt warm and happy. But he kept wondering, how did the corn kernels get out of the pantry?
Chapter 7, Yellow Paint. Discussion and Questions. Opportunity and Reward. Albert woke early and went into the kitchen to find Mother Skunk and Bluebell making plans for the day. They could have ignored him, but included him in their conversation. Mother used his presence as an opportunity to teach him about the herbs and spices of the forest. Question 1. Is it important to use each opportunity to both teach and learn from others? Mother and Bluebell also recognized Albert's unique skill to do fine work with his fingers. They included him in their project. Question 2. Is it wise to include others in our projects when they have unique skills to contribute? Question 3. How did being included make Albert feel? Bluebell had a difficult task to fill her basket. Question 4. When the job became uncomfortable, did Bluebell or Albert give up? Question 5. By persevering and finishing the task, how was Albert rewarded? Question 6. Have you ever completed a task to then feel the satisfaction of a job well done? Oh, and by the way, let's keep the mouse party our secret for now.
I am the composer and performer for all the music in this video. Both audio recordings and the printed scores are available on mybestfriendsliveinthe.woods.com. I will provide the link below. The painted illustrations are also my creation. Prints are available on mybestfriendsliveinthe.woods.com. I wrote this novel because I wanted to teach a way of viewing this beautiful earth where all living things are loved and respected, where everyone is valued for their uniqueness, where awe and magic still exist, where our plant allies heal us and ancient trees have names, a community where each member is included and valued. This is a novel. The chapters are meant to be heard in the order in which they were written. And while each chapter can stand alone, they do build as new characters are introduced and past events are referred to. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The chapters are numbered, so if you're just joining us, be sure to go back and watch from Chapter 1